Lady Diana Spencer was plucked from the obscure ranks of the British aristocracy and became a fairy tale princess. Then suddenly, in August 1997, Diana's life came to an end. The world stood still as news of Diana's car crash reverberated around the world's media. But what the official history books will not tell you is that on the very day of that fateful crash in Paris, rumours circulated that Diana had been assassinated by British military intelligence or the American CIA. In this film, we show you for the first time the true history of the British royal family, whose ancestors have stabbed and slashed their way to power throughout the ages. You'll see how Diana was bred from birth for her role to serve the royal family, and how Prince Charles callously continued his love affair with Camilla Parker Bowles throughout his marriage to Diana, and how Diana had to search her apartment in Kensington Palace for listening devices placed by MI5, who then distributed secretly taped and edited private phone conversations to the media in order to discredit Diana's public image. For the first time, we reveal details of the bungled attempt by MI5 to murder Camilla Parker Bowles just weeks before Diana's car crash in Paris. We also exclusively reveal that the black Mercedes carrying Princess Diana had previously been stolen at gunpoint, and that the engine management microchip had been replaced so that the car could be controlled remotely. We also interview the authors of a new book, Diana: The Hidden Evidence, which reveals that MI5 and MI6 officers had advance warning of the crash which killed Princess Diana, her companion Dodi Al-Fayed, and the driver Henri Paul. Join us now on a quest for the truth and find out how Diana, Princess of Wales, was murdered by the monarchy. Throughout the centuries, the British royal family have had a passion for murder and a fascination with the occult. Whilst innocent country folk were persecuted for devil worship in medieval Britain, the royal family played host to astrologers, alchemists and magicians such as John Dee, Francis Bacon and Isaac Newton. To this day, the British royal family patronise various secret societies such as Freemasonry and the Order of the Garter. Freemasonry is a global cult which forces members to reenact murder, undergo a mock funeral, and requires all who take part to swear blood-curdling oaths of allegiance to the Masonic god Yarbulon. Reverend John Lawrence wrote a book called Freemasonry, Is It a Religion? His conclusions were that Freemasonry is a cult which worships a tripantheon god, most definitely not the god of the Holy Bible. The Masonic god is inspired by the mythical spirit of Baal, the ancient devil. As a member of the royal family, Princess Diana was surrounded by Freemasons. Queen Elizabeth II is Grand Patroness of English Freemasonry, and the Duke of Edinburgh has been a Master Mason since 1952. Living under the same roof as Diana at Kensington Palace is Britain's most senior royal Freemason, the Duke of Kent. Seen here leading a grand Masonic ceremony, the Duke of Kent was installed as Grand Master of British Freemasonry by the Earl of Scarborough in 1964. Every Mason swears blood oaths of allegiance to his fellow brothers. A Mason must support his fellow brothers even if he is in full knowledge of wrongdoing by his brethren.
The dangers you have escaped are those of stabbing and strangling. For when you enter
In every strata of British government, there are Masons who will carry out illegal duties, such as murder, on behalf of the royal family.
your own death by stabbing, and the brother that held it would have remained firm and done his duty.
There are over 600,000 Masons in Britain today, many of them directly serving the royal family in the government, armed forces, and in the secret services. One of the most powerful factions within Freemasonry are the Knights of Malta. They wear the Maltese cross around their necks. As Diana was led up the aisle, she was entering a world dominated by Masonic tradition of skullduggery, black magic, and murder. The ancestors of Prince Charles were often fascinated with witchcraft. King James I wrote an authoritative book on the subject called Demonologies. Prior to Henry VIII's reign, Jeanne of Navarre, widow of King Henry IV of England, was accused of having used witchcraft to seek the death of her stepson Henry V. Jeanne of Navarre was convicted without a trial, largely on evidence given by her chaplain. Some historians have suggested that Jeanne of Navarre was a member of a well-organized coven of witches based in the heart of the British royal family. So this very day, in the Royal Palace of Westminster, seat of Her Majesty's government, blood-curdling oaths and secret rituals are acted out by members of Parliament and the Queen's Privy Councillors at the new Welcome Masonic Lodge.
This is London. Following bulletin was issued at 9:25. The King's life is moving peacefully towards its close.
Well, I'll give you one example of how there's one law for the poor and no law for the rich, especially the royal family. Back in the late 1930s, the old King George in his Jubilee year, he was very ill. And there is such a thing as euthanasia. And euthanasia is a technique of killing somebody. It's a mercy killing for somebody that's suffering from a life-threatening disease. And it's completely illegal in the United Kingdom if you were to kill somebody, you know, who requested that they wanted to die before some painful disease took hold of them. You would go to prison for murder, or at the very least you'd go to prison for manslaughter. The Queen asked Lord Dawson of Penn, the royal physician, to perform euthanasia, in other words, to kill the king before his illness took its natural course. Lord Dawson of Penn took a menu card and wrote a bulletin that was circulated to the BBC, which said that the king is naturally coming to the end of his life. That was an absolute, utter lie. What happened is that Lord Dawson of Penn filled 2 syringes, one syringe full of cocaine, and the other syringe was full of morphine, which is an opium. Morphine is very, very similar to heroin. And amazingly, instructed the nurse to inject King George with these 2 syringes into his jugular vein. The nurse refused. So Lord Dawson of Penn took these syringes and injected the king himself. Now this act of euthanasia, which is completely illegal within the United Kingdom, was timed so that the king was killed so that it would be announced in time for the morning papers the next day. And if any of us were to do that within the borders of the United Kingdom, we would be arrested and imprisoned for murder or manslaughter. And that's a good example of how there is one law for the poor and no law for the rich. The marriage was, you know, a marriage made in heaven as far as the media were concerned. The Sun newspaper, which was started by Rupert Murdoch, wasn't that old. In 1981, when the royal engagement was announced,